Good afternoon, everyone. This is day 5 of the Trump Republican shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. Why are we in this moment? It's because Republicans have decided that they would rather shut down FEMA, shut down TSA, and shut down the Coast Guard than get ICE under control. The American people know that ICE needs to be reined in. We believe that taxpayer dollars should be used to make your life more affordable, not to brutalize or kill American citizens in cold blood, like Renee Nicole Good or Alex Preddy, or to violently target law-abiding immigrant families, which we know is taking place all across America. The American people are horrified at what they have seen. But instead of fixing the problem, which Democrats have given our Republican colleagues an opportunity to do, they've shut down crucial parts of the Department of Homeland Security. It is our view that immigration enforcement in this country should be fair, it should be just, and it should be humane. That's not what's happening right now in the United States of America. And that's why ICE needs to be reformed in a dramatic, bold, meaningful, and transformational manner. And if that doesn't happen, the DHS funding bill will not move forward. Questions?
You met with Maryland State delegation earlier today. Is there any outcome on redistricting? Has the Senate president changed his mind on potentially allowing the vote, and would it be possible to do that before Tuesday's primary filing deadline?
I had a wonderful meeting with Governor Wes Moore, with Speaker Pena Melnick, and with the Democrats in the Maryland House of Delegates to thank them for their leadership and for their courage in advancing a competitive congressional map. I also had the opportunity to sit with Senate President Ferguson. He articulated his perspective. I articulated our perspective. And it's our view, and I believe this is the view that has been clearly and decisively shared by Governor Wes Moore, that the best course of action at this moment is to allow an up or down vote in the Maryland State Senate so that we have an opportunity to move forward in a transparent way and see where things will land.
Did Ferguson agree to that, having a vote?
It's my understanding that he's going to have a conversation with his members, and we'll see what happens from there.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Can you just kind of level set on where negotiations stand between Democrats and the White House? I know they said both parties are still far apart. You all have said Republicans are largely ignoring some of the guardrails that you proposed. I mean, at this point, are the lines of communication still open? Are you expecting them to put up another offer? Are Democrats going to?
This is day 5 of the Trump Republican shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, meaning they've chosen to shut down the Coast Guard, shut down FEMA, and shut down TSA rather than dramatically reform ICE. Donald Trump spent the weekend on the golf course with Ron DeSantis. And so we've not seen any high-level effort coming from the president or from the House or Senate Republican leaders. We have no idea where they're at in the midst of a crisis of their own making. The Republicans are the ones who decided to pass this one big ugly bill, rip health care away from millions of Americans, enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, at the same time steal food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans by passing a $186 billion cut to SNAP, which also happens to be the largest cut in American history, and then turned around in that same bill and gave ICE a $75 billion slush fund. So mass and untrained agents could be violently unleashed in American communities throughout the country. That's a big problem that we're confronting on behalf of the American people. And Republicans are going to need to own up to the chaos that they've created, particularly as we approach the State of the Union, which is in tatters right now. It's a disaster, and the American people know it. Now, I'm here at the Capitol, ready, willing, and able to sit down with any of my Republican colleagues, anytime or any place, in order to bring about a resolution. But House and Senate Democrats remain steadfast in our views as to the type of things that have to happen in order for ICE to be dramatically reformed, which include mandating judicial warrants before ICE agents can storm private property or rip everyday Americans or law-abiding immigrant families from their homes. We believe that there should be a restoration of the prohibition against the excessive use of force. We believe there should be independent investigations so that when ICE or CBP agents violently break the law, state and local authorities have the ability to criminally investigate them or prosecute them. We also believe that sensitive locations should be off limits. That includes, but is not limited to, schools, hospitals, houses of worship, and polling sites. Completely and totally off limits. We believe that ICE agents should identify themselves, that body cameras need to go on and masks need to come off, so that ICE agents are actually compelled to conduct themselves like every other law enforcement agency in the country. These are all demands that have strong support with the American people. And they remain lines in the sand for us because we're standing up for everyday Americans, for American citizens, and for law-abiding immigrant families who are being violently targeted by an ICE agency that is completely and totally out of control. Got you.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Can you just tell us the latest state of play on the proposal that Democrats sent over? Have you heard back from the White House? And also, you did mention the State of the Union. Can you just let us know? We've heard there's a lot of calls for Democrats to boycott the annual speech. What again is your advice to the House Democratic Caucus on the approach for Tuesday?
Well, as we approach the State of the Union address, my view remains the same, which is that the two options that are in front of us in our House is to either attend with silent defiance or to not attend and send a message to Donald Trump in that fashion, which will include participation in a variety of different alternate programming that is going to take place in and around the Capitol complex.
And then the state of play on the proposal
Well, in terms of the state of play on the current proposal, we've responded. We've reiterated our perspective on the types of things that are absolutely necessary in order for a DHS funding bill to move forward, all anchored in this principle that ICE needs to conduct itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country and stop using taxpayer dollars to brutalize the American people. And the ball is back in the court of the White House because they have our most recent response, and we await reaction from them.
You outlined two different possibilities for Democratic members for the State of the Union. Do you plan to attend, and which of those options will you take?
My current plan is to attend. We're not going to Donald Trump's house. He's coming to our house. It's my view that you don't let anyone ever run you off of your block.
Can you share why Democrats haven't given us any details of your counterproposal and why negotiations have been a bit under wraps the last week or so?
Well, listen, I think that I just articulated 5, 6, or 7 items that are part of what Democrats believe are necessary in order to dramatically reform ICE and get this rogue agency under control. There are other items that I can talk about. Certainly, we need a dramatic change in policy. We also need a change in personnel. Kristi Noem's got to go. Why she's still around when Alex Preddy was killed in cold blood on January 24th is beyond me. It sends a message that these Republicans are not serious about doing the types of things necessary to rein ICE in. We believe there should be a prohibition against racial profiling, ethnic profiling, and language profiling. That's not the American way. That's the Trump way. And we don't think that should be allowed in the United States of America. So we're going to continue to forcefully make our case to the public, as well as to our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, in terms of what is necessary to end the violence, end the brutality, end the assault funded by taxpayer dollars on American citizens and law-abiding immigrant families. Thanks. Second row.
Mr. Jeffries, do you have any thoughts on Congressman Tony Gonzalez, who reportedly had an affair with an aide who died by suicide last year?
I'm unfamiliar with the details of that situation, so I have no further comment.
Quickly on affordability, there's a deadline tomorrow for the Treasury Department to define what institutional investors are in the order banning them from buying up single-family homes. Do you have any thoughts on what you think that should look like, or any other ideas how to make housing more affordable, more available in America?
Yeah, housing costs in the United States of America are completely and totally out of control, and Republicans have made the situation worse, in part by their inaction. These extremists spent all of 2024 promising to lower the high cost of living. In fact, Donald Trump said it would happen on day one. And the real state of the economy right now is that housing costs haven't gone down, they've gone up. And Donald Trump has done nothing about it. We have to legislate in this space. Yet, the Republican priority has been anchored around ripping health care away from the American people, as opposed to actually trying to make life more affordable in housing, in health care, in child care, in terms of utility bills, and of course as it relates to groceries and goods, where because of Donald Trump's reckless tariffs, the Trump tariffs, the price of groceries and goods in the United States of America is going up, and the Trump tariffs are causing everyday Americans to pay thousands of dollars more in additional expenses per year. We all understand that in order to get housing costs under control here in this country, we need to build more housing that is affordable to working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans. Because right now, the demand for housing that is affordable to everyday Americans is here, and it greatly exceeds the supply. And so we have to bring that into balance. And we said from day one of this presidency that we will work with any one of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle if they're actually committed to driving down housing costs or costs for everyday Americans. But they decided to take a my way or the highway approach to jam this one big ugly bill down the throats of the American people. And that's why the American people now, across the board, understand Republican policies have failed. They failed on the economy. They failed on lowering costs. They failed on housing costs. They failed on health care. They're failing on immigration enforcement. They are a complete and total failure. It's one of the reasons why they're losing elections all across the United States of America and why they're trying to gerrymander the national congressional map, which we have forcefully pushed back against and will not allow to happen.
Congresswoman Valerie Foushee is facing a primary challenge from Nita Alam. She's backed by Bernie Sanders. Can you comment on that primary, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks in North Carolina?
I strongly support the Congresswoman, as is the case with the Congressional Black Caucus and many of her colleagues that have served with Val for the last several years. He's a tremendous member of Congress, very thoughtful, very studious, very serious, and very forceful in advocating on behalf of our constituents and pushing back against Donald Trump's extremism. For us in the House, primaries are a way of life. That's just the reality. You know, the framers decided that the House would be the institution that is closest to the American people, to reflect the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the fears, the concerns, the anxieties, the life experiences, and in the words of the framers, the passions of the people. And one of the ways in which they effectuated that dynamic is to give the House a 2-year term. And so every 2 years, we have to go back to the people to make an argument to persuade them to renew our 2-year employment contract. That's just a way of life. It must be nice to have a 6-year term. But we don't have that luxury. And so that's going to mean, in many districts across the country, that there will be active primaries. And we embrace that as a reality of what the House is supposed to represent. But at the same period of time, I stand behind every single one of my Democratic colleagues, from the most progressive, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, to the more centrist ones like Tom Suozzi, and everybody in between. I stand behind all of them. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they're all reelected.
Jeffries, in regards to the State of the Union, do you have any concerns about having such a high-profile major security event that has a lot of Secret Service responsibilities during a DHS shutdown?
You know, the administration is ultimately going to have to make the decision as to whether it's appropriate optically to come up to Capitol Hill in the middle of Republicans deciding to shut down the Department of Homeland Security. At this particular point in time, with House Republicans barely in the majority and narrowly holding on with great desperation, the invitation to a State of the Union address, of course, is extended by Speaker Mike Johnson. And so we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. But it is somewhat challenging beyond the security situation that Donald Trump is going to come up to Capitol Hill when we know the real state of the economy is failing, the real state of health care failing, the real state of immigration enforcement failing. The State of the Union is falling apart, and the American people know it. That, to me, is the significant challenge that Donald Trump will confront in coming up to Capitol Hill to try to lie, spin, and misdirect the American people, and it's not going to work.
Have you spoken to Speaker Johnson about Randy Fine's comments that you posted about on X?
I have not had a conversation with Speaker Johnson yet about the so-called congressman's comments that were disgusting, and part of a long track record of disgusting comments, Islamophobic comments, and xenophobic comments that he's made. Now, Mike Johnson has spent a lot of time talking about decorum. Get your members under control, because if you don't, we will. Thank you, everyone.